So this is the Riviera, and we've removed some of the drive shaft and rudder parts. And today I'm going to show you how to change the packing in the stuffing box. Okay, so almost every single wooden boat that I've ever done has a stuffing box, or some people call it like the rudder log, a shaft log. And what this is where the shaft goes through the boat, it has to somehow keep from leaking water. So this would be through here. And then the jam nut is here, and then your stuffing box or the stuffing nut has packing inside of it, which I'll show you later. We'll get that out of there and we'll replace it. So every wooden boat that we work on, when we work on the bottom, we replace the packing in the rudder and the shaft. And that is because most of the time when boats come in here and says, well, I've got a leak, if it's a newer bottom, this is usually your problem. It's either rudder packing or the shaft log packing gets a little worn, or it gets a lot worn and it needs to be replaced. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. Okay, so it's broken down into parts. I'm going to get rid of this shaft. We don't need this anymore. It's broken down into some parts here that's very common that you'll see in a lot of wooden boats. So we have the rubber hose right here. We have some hose clamps which holds this together. This is a separate part, and it's almost identical to your rudder log as well. This one is for the drive shaft, this one is for the rudder. So this is a jam nut, and it basically holds this from backing out because the prop shaft is spinning at a high rate of speed depending on how fast you're going. And it could back out, especially if you're going in reverse, this could back out. So this is the jam nut. Now, there is some wrenches that you can use to get that apart. Also, what they have on some of them is a little dimple, like somebody drilled a hole, probably from the manufacturer. That hole is for a punch, to either tighten it, to jam it down against this so it won't back off, or to loosen it. We already loosened these, so what we'll do is we'll back this off. And now you can see that there is some wax square rope in here, and that is the stuffing box material. There's usually 2 sets inside, and they look like that. Now this one's pretty worn. I can tell that there's really not too much wax left in this, and it also, you can tell that it's been really worn on the inside edge from the shaft going around so many times. So we need to replace it. So you might need to figure out what size packing rope that you need. So the way that you can figure that out is you take the measurement of the shaft, which ours is 1 inch. Then you take the diameter of the stuffing box, this is 1.5. Then you minus the shaft diameter, which is 1 inch. That'll leave you a 1/2 inch. So what you want is a 1/4 inch on each side of your shaft, right? All the way around. So what we'll use today is 1/4 inch rope that is embedded with wax and it's braided. So it's always a good idea, if you can, to clean this stuff up really good. We have a sandblaster, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump over there, we're going to get it cleaned up, and then we'll be back. So we got all our parts cleaned up, and it's a good idea at that point in time to inspect the parts just to make sure you don't have any cracks anywhere, or say the nut has a break in it or something, just to make sure that everything is nice. We use the sandblaster for this, but you can scrub these parts with a wire brush and some degreaser, and that's just fine. I mean, you just want to get all the grease and all the old stuff off them. Now what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what length we need of rope. The way that you do that is you hold this on the inside. It's very easy. Just get it kind of tight in there. Measure it around to the other side. Take a nice sharp razor knife and cut it square, nice and square. Now, some people cut it at an angle and cut this on an opposite angle and lay them over the top of each other. I don't do that. I don't think it's really necessary. Some of the ones we take off are like that, but I'm going to show you why that's not necessarily the way you have to do it. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to put it right in here. We may need to trim it because we want those joints that come together really nice and tight. So get it in there how we want it. I need to take a little bit off. I just kind of mark it and then just cut a nice straight edge. So you can see that that is a nice straight flat square edge right there. We'll put our first one in. Generally there is just 2 in one of these. I've seen them for bigger cruisers that hold more. You could put 3 in here, but the problem is you'd have very little thread left to screw this back in. And you want some room to hold this on and to screw it in, and then adjust it as the boat goes, you know, as it gets used, because they do wear in a little bit. So I've got that first one in there real nice. I'll just cut my second piece the same way. Make sure it's going to fit. It is. So what you want to make sure too is that your seams are offset. So this one right here, my seam is right here. So I'm just going to, and it doesn't have to be 90 degrees. It just has to be offset from the other one. So I'll just put that on the other side. Pack it in there real nice. Keep it nice and square. And that's all there is to it, really. I mean, we've inspected our parts, we've cleaned them up, put our jam nut on. I didn't clean the threads on the machine too much just because I don't want to mess up any of the threads. So those are on nice. Now, your stuffing nut. And that's all there is to it. We have new stuffing in our rudder log, and we'll do the same thing with our shaft. And to tighten these when they're on the boat, so what we do is we back off that jam nut. Say this is in the boat now, we've got our rudder in there. We tighten this as much as we can by hand with the shaft in there. And then we take a wrench and we give it about 1/4 of a turn. And that seems to be really close. So I'm going to do this nut real quick, and then I'll show you how to put it all together on the shaft log. So you can see if I were to put another one in there, I'd have no threads left. So that's why I only put 2 in there and you'll know if you're using 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch, and you might be able to put 3/8 inch in, but what we want for this one and what's correct for this one is 1/4 inch. So we're just gonna put this back together again. I don't have any rubber hose here at the shop. We've got some on order. But basically the rubber is there for this to be a little flexible as it's going around. So that's very important. And there shouldn't be a bunch of space between the packing nut area and the stuffing box itself. You know, you don't want it out here. You want just about 3/4 of an inch or so in between the two, just enough so it gives it some wiggle room. Your jam nut goes on first. Now there is a flat side. This side's flat, and it'll meet this side that's flat. So there is a right and wrong direction. And basically that's it. You tighten these down. Remember, new hose, new packing. Tighten it all down as best you can. Tighten it by hand with the shaft in there, because if the shaft's not in there, what'll happen is it'll just squish it, and you don't want that. So put the shaft in there, tighten it down by hand, take a wrench, tighten it about a 1/4 turn, and then lock down your lock nut, making sure that you don't back this off. That is where your punch and your hammer come in. Tighten that jam nut and you're all set. So in the boat, I mean, to really test these properly, you've got to be in the water. And so the boat's in the water. It should drip about every 5 seconds, 3 seconds. Because what that does is it lubricates inside between the rope and the shaft. And if it's too tight, it'll heat up. And you can actually literally put your hand on here and feel if it's warm. If it's warm, it's too much. If it's pouring out, it's not enough. You just tighten this down onto the shaft enough to where you just get a drip out of it. If you can't achieve that, or if the nut goes all the way down and it still leaks, then your packing needs to be replaced. So you can get this stuff from like Jamestown Distributing or West Marine. You can find it online. Just make sure you get the right size for the stuffing box and the nuts that you have for your boat. So we're going to finish up on these bottoms, and then we will show you properly bedding these guys in and share that with you. Thanks for watching again. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We did go up in subscribers, so that was nice. We are over 3,000. And if you want to support the channel, then the Patreon is there to do that. And thank you to my Patreon supporters. We will see you back here. Thanks.